Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a knitty yarny podcast from the southwest of France. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this new episode. I hope you are all doing very well. I must say, I am not confident in how well I am going to be able to film that episode because my weird mood isn't going any better. If anything, it's getting worse. But hey, and also someone decided to either start lawning their what's the word? What's the verb for it? Lawning, like cutting their grass in their garden, or cutting trees, or like circular sowing something. I don't know. Bad timing, but that's just how it is when you live in a planet with other human beings who do things that sometimes are loud. And hey, oh god, it's already we have issues. I have a knitting only episode for you this week. I have a pattern release, which I'm super excited about. It's a really special pattern to me, and yeah. I also have a really nice work in progress to show you and a couple more things that I want to talk about. But knitting only. I did spin quite a bit on my spinning wheel recently, but I decided to sort of split the content so that we wouldn't have a 2 hours long episode. Hopefully. But yeah. I am going to start. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, if you are looking for a topic in particular, or if you notice that I am rambling and you want to skip that, please feel free to look at this. I also put links to everything that I talk about, as well as my social media, my patterns for sale on Ravelry and Payhip and Love Crafts. And yeah. That's it. I can start with a pattern release, and it is the sweater that I am wearing, and it is quite the ride. It is the Ombrella sweater, which is quite a thing. So I'm not sure that I ever talked to you about it because I was knitting it in December. So you have seen it as I was recording the little vlogmas, the little vlogs that I did at the end of last year. It was a great year, 2020. But I think I finished it before making an actual podcast episode. So I don't think I ever presented it to you. But here goes. Here it is. So it is Ombrella. It is a top-down set-in sleeve sweater. So you start with the shoulder, which are garter stitch shoulders, and then you have this really big cable panel down the front. The sides are in stockinette, and at the back you also have a really big cable panel. And I'm not sure. I'm gonna try. Hey, down the back, which is similar to the one in the front, but slightly different. And so I knitted mine pretty acrobatics. I knitted mine pretty cropped because the cable kind of tightened the fabric here, and as soon as you go into the ribbing, it sort of naturally flares out. So what I did is that I knitted it so that the ribbing would start at the top of my hip, which would sort of work with my body shape. I don't know why I did this. It's pretty much like this. But yeah. And then you work the satin sleeve shoulder cap with a cable along the sleeve. And it is, I really hope you can't hear that motor running. I'm really annoyed at my neighbor. They're always buzzing something. It's so triggering. And here, and this is actually the same cable as the one on the center back. And yeah, the sleeves are rather fitted with the creases, and yay! So it is my first design with a satin sleeve. It's quite special because it took me a very long time to get it to fruition. I wanted to make this design for quite some time, But I sort of waited until I was confident enough that it was right. The thing is, when you start making a design and you and it's something that you haven't done before, you sort of need to start from scratch and sort of make it your own. And for example, when I first designed mittens, which were a bit ago, I had knitted so many mittens before over a really long period of time that when I did my own recipe, I sort of pulled from different things, but starting from my own mind, my own memories and whatever I liked best, and sort of make it, I don't mean original in the sense as it is anything new or revolutionary, but it started from my own recollection and building up of different experiences. The thing is, you need to sort of make sure when you're designing something that you're not, even not voluntarily, drawing too much from a specific experience. And the thing with satin sleeves sweaters is that I didn't knit that many. I knitted one a very long time ago, I think a couple actually, and then I did I think it's the Kate cardigan that was published in one of Line's magazines, and so I didn't have as much experience with satin sleeves than I had with raglans, for example, or yokes. And so that is why I sort of needed time to learn about the construction, kind of observe here and there, and sort of be able to make it my own for sure. And what do I do as a first satin sleeve design? I put cables everywhere. Because why not? Why not? That's just the thing. And yeah, I am so happy with how it turned out. So it is not a complicated pattern. The thing is, I wanted to make sure that it looked like I wanted, which is a heavily cabled, nice garment, but at the same time, I wanted it to be accessible and pleasant to knit, which is why, for example, you have the garter stitch shoulder, which allows you to have some short rows here without the motif badgering in. You also have the garter details here, and at the bottom, and which is why you have stockinette in the side here, which allowed me to incorporate some bust shaping for the people who need it. Basically, if you notice that your sweaters tend to ride up in the front because of your bust, in the pattern you will see it instructs you to make short rows here, just to add a bit more length to cover the curve. This is, if you if you need a bit more fabric here, basically. And if you want to put it waist shaping, also it makes it easy. So yeah, I kind of was juggling between, I wanted something that looked wow, but at the same time it needed to be good for to customize and to adapt, and at the same time not be too complicated to knit. And that is what this is. Basically, in the spectrum of pullovers with motifs, this is still on the lower end. It's not really complicated. Say, for example, you have stockinette sweaters, which are the basis. Then you have sweaters with one isolated motif. For example, you just have something on the yoke, or just a little panel on the front or on the back. Then you have sweaters with larger motif. And this is sort of where it's at the bottom of that difficulty scale, if you will. Because there is so much more you can do with motif pattern arrangements and shaping and having difficult stitches, and this is really at the basis of that, because the cables themselves, you have to follow the two charts at the same time for the front and for the back, but the stitches themselves are simple. Basically, the cables are sort of the same. Like, again, this is the same one as the one that's in the back. You can see here the zigzagging one are here as well. And this one is the same as this one. And basically, this and this are the same thing, just at a different scale. If you want, this one is sort of double this with another one in the middle. So, yes, it means that you don't have 25 different cables to remember. They're all sort of the same. And also the repeat is short. The repeat is just here. There's just one big cable that is done over 12 stitches, but it's simple enough to do. And also every other row is a rest row, which means that if you see a knit stitch, you knit it. If you see a purl stitch, you purl it. If you see a twist stitches, you twist it. And yeah, basically it means that you need to follow the chart, but you only need to follow it for like half of the time, because that is sort of a trick of most intricate looking motif, is that actually every other row is just a plain row. So that's really nice and a little bit more accessible to knit. And the second thing is that the sweater shape is basic. It's just a panel of cable. There's no shaping in it, you don't have to think about how to incorporate the decreases and increases, which is another level of difficulty. This is pretty much about following the chart. That's it. So it demands attention more than execution skill, basically. This pattern is about following the chart. Is not about making something that is difficult to make, so to say. I don't know if I'm clear. So yeah, you shouldn't be afraid of it. If you have done some cables, some of my testers before, they only knitted a small cabled project with very simple cabled, and they did great. And we had a wide range of skills and experience levels, and they all were fine in the making of it, and that was really great. And maybe you noticed that this is the same cable as the one that is in the Knock Knock sock pattern, which is a pattern that I released at the beginning of the month and that I have showed you in the previous episode. So if you like the socks and you want to knit them, well, this will maybe allow you to see if you're going to be into making this cabled trickery. Basically, I just really like those cables. So you can see it's like twisted stitches here and just these sort of... It really, really looks cool. I really like it. It's like I said, it's a really precious pattern to me. I'm really happy that it's finally out, that I get to show it to you. I really hope you like it. I know all over motif patterns are a bit unloved sometimes, so yeah, I never quite know. I used decay weight yarn for this, and I used yarns from Slavica Yarns, which is Polish indie dyer. If you follow the designer Amanita, I think it's the tag Amanita Knits, I think. They use a lot of Slavica yarns. I think they're sort of they know each other. I think roughly. I will not invent relationships, either family or anything. I don't know. Anyway, they use a lot of Slavica yarns, and that's kind of how I discovered them. It's my second design in their yarn, and they're really good at making rich, moody colors. They often have an autumnal palette, which is just right for me. And this is their Mokosh base, which is a merino, yak, and silk in DK. And I really like yak yarn. That's such a... Okay, no. Let's not make puns. I really like yak because since the base is like this grayish brown color, it just dyes in a really rich and different way. And it shines, it has drape, it's warm, and it's often not as expensive as cashmere is, while still having that luxurious feel to it. So that's really great. This is the Sorbus colorway, which is this rusty red amazingness. Really like it. And yeah, I often find that the merino, yak, and silk blend, when it's fingering weight, it tends to be a bit floppy. But in DK weight, it's a bit more round, and it has a fantastic definition. You can see. You can really well see the twisted stitches here that just curl inward. That is really nice. And I do want to talk a little bit about gauge for this, because it is important. Stitch gauge is obviously important, and row gauge also is important, because it's kind of like in raglans, except it shows even more vividly. If you don't have the right row gauge, your armhole is going to not be right. And so be mindful of that, and especially if you know that you have a yarn that tends to grow when you block it, account for that, because like maybe stretch it a bit more or weigh it down or something, because it happened to some of my testers where they basically their armhole is like 6 or 7 centimeters lower than what it should be because they didn't really check their row gauge. And yeah, it's important, and the stitch gauge is also important, obviously, because if not, you don't have the right position here. And if you have your armhole here, then that's not really okay for a setting sleeve. I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but it's intended to be, if I were normally, it's tended to be here. Some of them are even like this, setting sleeves. I find it's nice. It's a bit too vintage for my taste when it's really inward. I prefer it to be like here. just stay there. So yeah, be mindful, because some of my testers have the armholes that are not right. So yeah, basically we just checked when we noticed that, when I noticed on the picture that it was not right. I mean, they seem to be okay with it, so that's fine. But I just wanted to tell you that when you're knitting a setting sleeve or a raglan or even a yoke, if you don't have some leverage in the length, just row gauge is not so useless as it may seem in some sweater constructions. And as far as getting gauge on cabled designs, I do want to talk a little bit about this, because the motifs that stretch, like cables or ribbing, especially ribbing, it's a bit difficult to make sure that you have the right gauge, because you can never be sure that we all stretch it the same way. Basically, we can't be sure that, you make a swatch in cable and you're like, okay, well, should I like stretch it or not? Like, what do I do? And it's just very difficult to tell you how much it should spread. And same with ribbing, So what my advice is for this, and the way I do it, is take the problem the other way, basically. And it is the only time where you can do that. But when you knit your swatch and the pattern tells you to make this many stitches and this many rows and follow this chart to check your gauge. It's in the pattern. Make your swatch in cable or in ribbing if you're making a ribbing garment. For example, I'm thinking of the little bralettes and the shorts that Jessie Maid is making, for example. I need to make the bralette that I wanted to make. But yeah, it's mostly ribbing. And it's a bit difficult to get the gauge. Same with cables. So you make your swatch in the cable or in the ribbing. And then when you block it, force it to be the correct gauge. So for example, if the pattern tells you that one repeat of cable has to be 11 centimeters wide, 9 centimeters tall, or that you should have this amount of stitches over 10 centimeter, you block the thing, you force it to be the right gauge. And then you let it dry and you look at it. Do you think that it's too stretched out? Is it bad? Does it look like this? Or do you think that it's not stretched out enough? And from there, you can decide whether you need to change your needle size. If it's too stretched out, if it's like this, the ribbing, and you're like, that's not right. I don't want it to be that stretched. Also, because it can be transparent. So that means that your stitches are too small and you need to go up a needle size. If it's not stretched enough, if like the cable is all bunched up and thing, and you think it looked better if it was a bit more spread, then it means that your stitches are too big and you need to go down a needle size. Okay, so that is how I do swatches for cables and ribbing, and basically things that stretch, but you can't really make sure that everyone will stretch it the same way. Lace is different, because the thing with lace is that you just stretch it until to the maximum, basically. So it's the maximum. That's just how it is. But cables, like I could stretch it a bit more. Like if I had larger breasts and it would be a bit more stretched out like this, that would still be okay. But for me, the right gauge is this. If I stretch it to more, then this will not be the right gauge. And it's just difficult to see what amount of stretch is required, especially with different yarns. Some of them that might loosen up a lot with washing. So you knit the swatch, you force it to be the right gauge, and you see if you like the look of the fabric or not. So that is sort of the going the other way around, but this is how I prefer to do gauge checks with cables and ribbing. So yeah, that is it. And I think I said everything I wanted to say. I really hope you like. I feel like I'm not. That's the thing. When I talk about my designs, I just want to talk about different technical things that are sort of revolving around the design, but I don't feel like I'm really making a good job at presenting them. Yeah, I hope you like it. If you do, on Ravelry it is 15% off for the release with the code Ombrella, which is the name of it. And yeah, all the details will be in the description. And yeah, I really hope you like that design. I know if it looks daunting, please just don't hesitate. In the Ravelry description, there is a list of all the techniques that are involved. Yeah, basically you just need to maybe have done a bit of cables before, be comfortable reading charts, and making short rows for the sleeve caps, basically. And yeah, that is it. And I do plan to make a sleeveless version, because when I was knitting it and I tried it on before making the sleeves, it looked really good as a vest. So I do plan to make this. It should come in November this year, unless I change plans or something happens. But I will make a version. Well, it's not going to be the same motif, because I think I talked about this in the latest episode. I just can't be bothered to redo the same thing twice. So I already know which cables I'm going to use. Basically, they're going to be interchangeable. So you're going to be able to switch motifs if you like. If you have the two patterns, they will be together in some sort of way. I will have a discount. Don't worry about that. Yeah, it will be basically the same design with different cables. And I plan to finish the sleeves with folded over ribbing, which means that I will probably fold over all the ribbing, like this, you know. Everything will be folded over like this. At the bottom as well, and I'm considering making a split hem. I don't know. Then it's not going to be the same design. But that's in the plan. I already have the yarn for it. A gorgeous, gorgeous yarn from Deborah, Les Petites Potions. And yeah, for now it's planned for November. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. And yeah, I think I've said everything and I can move on to my work in progress. So I want to show you this. So this is why I'm recording now, basically, because I'm going to show you my linen cardigan, which is almost finished. But the thing is, after this, I'm going to have to knit something that I have to keep a bit secret. So I'm not, like, it wouldn't have been good. And I kind of feel like what happens often is that I show you the beginning of a project where it looks all ugly. And then I don't show you anymore until it's actually finished and released and everything. And it's a bit weird. So I thought it was nice to show you the process, even if the process is actually almost finished. So, this is another design of mine, which is going to be called Ninon, which is a French name, which I really like. It's quite a funny, quirky name. And it's a linen all-over lace cardigan. Yes, we are doing a lot of motifs here today. If you are a stockinette only person, this episode is not for you. Come back in a month or so. No, it's quite funny how I switch from motifs to not. Like, for example, I knitted this, and then I knitted the Ori pullover, which is a mostly stockinette V-neck jumper, and now I'm knitting this. So it's like I keep switching from one to the other. But yeah. This. I changed the construction 3-4 times in my mind, and I just, I had a hard time. But now it's almost finished, and I managed to do what I wanted. So this is like a drop shoulder cardigan, and basically you start at the back here that you cast on, and you knit the back. Then you pick up the stitches here for the front, and so speaking of designs that are simple to make, but that just require attention, but there's nothing difficult in the making of it, this is a bit different because you do need to pick up stitches from a lace castanedge. Now, there is a row of purling, so you do see the stitches. And I personally really like picking up stitches, and I will always prefer to do this. I hate provisional cast-ons. I just find that they're much more fiddly for me. I have so much trouble getting all the stitches back on the needle from a provisional cast-on, so I will always choose to pick up stitches. But I know that some people really don't like it and are not comfortable with it. So in the pattern, I will just write notes in case you prefer to do provisional cast-ons. I will just quickly, there will be a few words in the patterns just telling you if you want to do it like this, you can. But yeah, basically you knit the back and then you make the fronts. And then what I wanted to do is put everything in one needle and join the fronts and the back together and just continue the cardigan like this, all in one go. No, that was not right, because I would have needed to follow 3 different charts at the same time, which I didn't want to do. And it was not pleasant. It would have made the pattern much more troublesome than necessary. And so the thing is, I would have needed, because the fronts are symmetrical, and then the edging of each section is slightly different. And so I would have needed one chart for this, one chart for the back, and then one chart for this. And it's just a bit troublesome, because when you have to have the 3 charts all printed together or opened in 3 different PDFs. And it's just a bit annoying. And the charts are not different enough to prevent confusion. So it would have caused issues. So what I decided is that the cardigan is going to be knitted flat. So basically, you knit the back until the armhole, and then you cast on some new edge stitches at the side, and you have another chart which is essentially the same, but this way in the charts you have everything. And so you have chart back 1, chart back 2, and then you have like the front chart 1 until the armhole. Then you cast on more stitches here, which become twisted ribbing on the side here for the underarm. And again, this is all in one new chart for the front. This way, basically, you barely need to look at the written instructions. You can work the pattern just from the charts, because the charts have everything, including the edge stitches on them. So yeah, and you follow this chart, same for the other front. And that's way, when you're knitting the cardigan, it's just one chart at a time. And it's just so much more nice to knit. And really, because the lace is not complicated. And so it's just so much more pleasant to work on, really. And this also allowed me to have a bit more leverage with grading. And yeah, you finish with the twisted ribbing. And then basically you seam the sides here. So you can see my seam is here. You have slipped stitches here on the edges, because on a straight line, I much prefer to use mattress stitch when you seam a garment together. When there are slipped stitches, it's just much neater for me. And so yeah, basically you just attach the sides together, and yeah, it just made it so much nicer. And also it meant that it's gonna be a bit more easier to grade for me. Because I'm gonna put it on, even though it looks a bit weird with the cabled jumper. But yeah, basically this is what it's gonna look like. As you can see, it has quite low armholes and a low drop shoulder. And yeah, basically with the grading, I'm going to play with the width of the shoulder, but mostly with the width of the twisted ribbing, so that basically larger sizes, you won't have a sleeve that starts here. Just a bit silly. So yeah, it's how it is. And yeah, as you can see, it looks so much better than what I thought it would. It's quite funny, because when I design, well, I think it's gonna look good because I want to make it. If not, it wouldn't make sense. But I'm always like, yeah, okay, that's gonna be nice. And then it actually looks much better than I thought. And this is the case with this one. And then I become insecure again. And I'm like, anyway, no one is going to want to knit it because it's all over lace. And so it's absolutely ridiculous, but whatever. So yeah. Now what I need to do is just pick up the stitches here and work a bit of twisted ribbing to finish the sleeve. And then I also want to finish the front edges here with just a tiny bit of twisted stitches, maybe just 3 or 4 rows, just to finish the front edges here. And yeah, this is how it will look like. Oh, and yes, basically, for the people who will have used the provisional cast on, basically, so you provisionally cast on the back, the fronts, then you join the shoulder with a 3 needle bind off, this will be noted in the pattern. And then basically when you do that, you will have some stitches at the center back extra that I just left here to accommodate for the neck space. And so when you will pick up to finish the fronts, you will just have these stitches at the center back on hold, and you will be able to put them back on the needle instead of picking them up. So yeah, it will be doable, not very complicated, and the pattern will have brief instructions on how to do that. But yeah, basically this will be a garment that is knitted flat, and it just makes so much more sense, and it was so much nicer to knit. Yeah, and I really, really enjoyed it once I figured out all the things that I needed to change. Yeah, so this is in linen, in the Rerum Natura Antigone, which is a sport weight linen. And yeah, I really like working with linen. I did a Q&A on my Instagram recently because this is the 5th garment that I have in linen. And yeah, so I noticed a lot of people, whenever we talk about plant fibers or linen, they say they're interested, but they're a bit afraid to pick it up. I don't really understand why. So I thought I'd just try and give some feedback on what I've tried and discussed with people about linen. And yeah, I was quite surprised to see that a lot of people, they were wondering if it wasn't too heavy or warm for the summer. I'm like, but no, that is precisely the point, is that it is not. Linen is really cool to the touch and is really airy and light. That is the point of it. It has a weight to it because it drapes, but it's not dragging down like cotton. I find it much more pleasant than cotton, because cotton, it always feels a bit chunky and it weighs down, and yeah. But the linen is really airy, and that's the point. It breathes so much more. So it's kind of like wondering if alpaca is going to be all rigid and firm. It's like, well, no. So yeah, this is sport weight, and I have some people who have tried to make swatches in fingering weight, and it's a bit too loose. But yeah, so basically either go for a plump fingering weight or a sport weight. I do think it will also look very nice in a wool silk blend, these sort of things. And yeah, so I just need to finish it. I do want to publish it in May, but it's not only dependent on me at the moment. I need to wait for the brand to potentially have some more of it in stock before I start the test. And I don't want to rush my testers on this, because it's all over lace. Well, even though I know that you're all just gonna knit the whole thing and then you're gonna push back the seaming forever because you don't want to do it. I know that's what you will do. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. I hope it will be available in May. If not, I will figure out something for it to be there not so late. So yeah, and I keep wondering if I forgot stuff, but yeah, I did want to talk about something. I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, someone on my Instagram, because I posted a picture of the Junie cardigan, which is a summer cardigan that I published last year. And it's mostly stockinette with just a little bit of lace detail. And I saw a comment this morning that said, really nice comment, that's not the issue here. It said that they really liked that design because it reminded them of the simplicity of my earlier designs. And I got a bit confused because it was just another example of how people's perceptions of my work is can be skewed, and I guess it works the same for any designer. But yeah, apparently, well, that person seemed to have an image that my first designs were mostly basic knits, more simple knits, and that now I was doing more of this, which is not the case. Because, like, first of all, Jenise is not one of my earliest design. I released it just last year. There's also a sort of a problem here with the time thing. Another comment said, "Oh, it's so nice to see old pattern that are not as well known." Like, it's not old, and it's one of my best selling patterns. So it's 1 year. It's not ancient because it's 1 year old. But yeah, some of my actually earlier patterns. I think the first pattern that got a few projects is the Florasol shawl, which is all over textured. Then there was the Ferriga sweater, which is quite peculiar with the heavy colorwork band. And then there's the Rumi sweater, which is cable and colorwork. So no, my first designs were not really simplistic. And actually, I recently released a cardigan, the Palmyre cardigan, which is mostly stockinette with a bit of lace. It's kind of like Jenise, but in winter version and a different construction. But it's also more simple and basic. So it's not really true. I think I alternate between the different styles quite often. And so yeah, it just reminded me of how odd it is sometimes that we picture a designer's work and it's not really accurate, or it's just a bit funny from the designer's perspective. And I was just thinking how, for example, if I'm thinking Andrea Mari, right? I'm thinking the fade, obviously. Maybe some of her mosaic work, but also mostly the fade. Caitlin Hunter, you're thinking Zweig. Jennifer Steingas, you're thinking the colorwork yokes, because that's mostly what she does. So Jorge Locatelli, the boxy. So you kind of have the Leslie Robinson brioche, you know, you kind of have that identifiable thing. So some sort of a trademark, some sort of a design that comes to mind immediately when you think of a certain designer. And I was just wondering, I don't really think I have that. So I just wanted to ask your opinion, because you're much more aware of these things than I am. Do you think, like, there's maybe one thing that comes to mind when if you want to find a new design and you're going through all the designers, if you eventually get to me, what is the first design that comes to your mind that maybe gonna make you put a label on some of my work? Like, is it, do you think it's cables? Do you think it's lace? Do you think it's colorwork or this or that? Because I don't think I have that label as much. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. It's just that my most popular designs, so there's Apophenia, which is the colorwork yoke. There's Xiris, which is the lace t-shirt. Then there's Albiera, which are a pair of mittens with cables. And then there's, Jenise, for example, which is a stockinette cardigan. And so it's not like I have one peculiar thing that works in my designs. And I don't know. Do you think I have one thing in particular that you identify with me? Because I can't tell. And it's quite funny to be reminded that some people associate me with certain things, and sometimes they have a wrong idea of the whole, the sort of picture as a whole of the things that I design. For example, this person that commented on Instagram, and again, it was a very nice comment. But yeah, they seem to think that I was only doing simple designs first, and that now I'm doing only intricate motif design, which is actually kind of the opposite. I don't know. I think I'm doing much more basic things now. Not really. I think I do alternate, like I said, quite a lot between basic stockinette thing and all over motif things. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a reflection that I was having today because of that comment. I was just wondering. And yeah, it's there's also the thing which I'm hearing quite a lot, is that people qualify only basic stockinette knits or designs as classic and sustainable because they're not submitted to fashion. And there seems to be some sort of hostility towards textures or lace or colorwork or whatever, anything that is not basic stockinette, because it's supposed to be a trend or a fashion and it's not sustainable, and you don't want it in a classic, easy to wear wardrobe. I don't think like that. It's funny. I don't feel that a design is a trend or is not going to be wearable in a few years just because it has colorwork or cables or lace. If you think about it, these things have been around for more than all of us. And so I was trying to think, was there really a trend in the knitting design world that just went and left? There are some things that are more prevalent in sometimes than other. I'm thinking, for example, the fade or gradient trend. Like, it was really big at one time, but now it's still existing. Some people, I see always new designs being released with a fade technique, or some people are still making their fade patterns, and I'm still wearing my faded sweater and shawls. And I have some yarns that I planned for gradients as well. And so yeah, even that I don't think is a quick going trend. I mean, it's been there for like a few years, not that much. But yeah, I'm not looking at this and thinking, oh, this is so out of the norm, and I don't know if I'm going to be wanting to wear it once it's not trendy anymore. Is this trendy? I don't think it is. And yeah, I actually kind of function the other way, is that when I think about basic all over stockinette garments, I don't want 25 of them. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna have like 2 or 3 in different colors. That's it. And then I actually want more specific things, like if I want cabled something, colorwork something, or lace something. It's like, I don't know. I don't want only basic things, because then they're a bit redundant. And for me, that does not make them sustainable if they're redundant. Like, if I have, for example, I only have one pair of black Chelsea style boots, you know. I don't need 15 black pair of boots. Why would I need that? And yeah, so I just found it kind of funny how we associate basic, simple stockinette garments with something that is, a certainty that it's just good because you're always going to wear them all the time. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, when you have 30 of them, it's like, what? You're gonna really need all of them and wear all of them and not get bored. I guess it really depends on one's personal taste, after all, like usual. But yeah, it was just a funny reflection that I had as well, as I actually function the other way, and I kind of think that making more, I don't mean unique, but more identifiable pieces, like, you know, you're gonna have that cabled thing, that lace thing. For me, having something that is specific is a bit more sustainable, because then I know that I have that thing. and it works in its own context, so to say. Yeah. Just some thoughts about things. Too many thoughts. I'm gonna move on. I have 2 other quick work in progress to show you. First of all, I do want to just quickly show you my colorwork blanket. I am making a colorwork blanket. It is a pattern by Jenise Hope. It's the Persian Dreams blanket. I'm knitting the worsted version. Had some people asking. There is a fingering weight version, but I'm knitting the worsted weight version because I'm not crazy yet. And so it's a big colorwork blanket that you knit in small pieces. Basically, you have several charts, and the pattern tells you this chart you knit X amount of times, like this, etc. So it's really messy because you have to keep them all organized, and it's like it's the worst project for social media ever, which is it's a shame because colorwork usually gets a lot of love on Instagram, but I can't take these issues. I have issues, modern issues. I'm making a colorwork blanket and I can't take pictures of it because it looks like a mess, even though I know it gets a lot of likes. It's a very specific kind of first world problem, is social media related first world problems. Anyway, so I have to keep them all together basically, and so I just threaded some yarn, some cotton thread to attach the pieces together and write down which charts they were. So for example, this was the chart number 1. I had to make 2. This was the chart number 2. And these ones I had to make borders. Some hexagons have a moss stitch border, depending on where they will be at the end of the blanket. I had to make 3. One of them has 3 borders because it's going to be a corner, I guess. And some of them have only 2 because they're just going to be at the edges. And this, you see, it's a bit complicated. This was the motif of the second one. I also did the third charts, and I only needed to make 2 without borders. I really liked that this one has the center in black. And now I'm making the 4th chart, and the 4th chart I need to make 4 versions with 3 borders, which is quite long. And it's this sort of very graphic target-like motif. And so I did 1, 2, and 3, and I started the 4th one. And I'm not halfway done yet, but almost. When I will have finished this one, I will have 11 done, and I think there's 24 overall. But yeah, that's quite a big project. And I'm showing it to you just to prove, look, I'm working on it. It is a thing. It is happening. I swear to God, I am. So I am working on it, but not last night. Last night, I was like, no, I didn't want to. It was like 6 or something, and I set up a new routine for myself, which is that at like around 8 or 8:30, I just leave and I go on to read. I already cut my phone early as I can, but then usually in the evening, like around 6 with my boyfriend, we're just together on Skype and we watch something or we play games or stuff. I mean, normally, because right now it's just playing Red Dead Redemption all the time. And I hate like games like Horse Riding Simulator. Anyway, last night I was in that situation where I was like, I didn't want to, because if I'm watching something at the same time I'm knitting, and I didn't want to knit the blanket. I was like, nah, because it was like just an hour and a half or something. I was like, I don't want I wasn't in the mood. I didn't want to spin either. And so I thought, isn't it the best moment to start knitting a scrunchie? So I started knitting, finally, the Pupu scrunchie, not crunchy. Scrunchie. Yes, I think there's an S. It's a pattern by Sari Nordlund. It's a hair elastic with a bow. So I think you've seen it around because quite some people have knitted it. I made a horrible knot on my needle and I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. So it's knitted holding a strand of fingering weight with a strand of mohair. And I'm using leftovers. Basically, this is La Bien-Aimée Helix, which is their Falkland Merino and Gotland blend. And it's the light fingering lace weight yarn. And it's such a gorgeous yarn. These are leftovers. This is the Emmeline colorway. It's more green than... It shows very blue. But it's such a gorgeous color. I absolutely love it. And I'm pairing it with this mohair, which is another leftover that I had from a sweater that I knitted. This is Lang Yarn lace mohair in the pine tree. It's like Sapin, so it's like Christmas tree colorway. And they're just perfect together. So I started. So I think that's the bow part of it, because you knit the bow first and then you knit the bow, not the bow. English is hard. The bow. You knit the bow first and then you actually knit the scrunchie. And I really need to figure out how to untangle myself here. Yeah. So yeah, it's just really fun. It was a bit tricky to do magic loop on like 3 stitches here. But yeah, it's just a bit of fun. And it's what I needed last night. So I'm going to make this, hopefully have it finished soon. And yeah, so I think that's it. I've said everything. This is all I've been working on lately. I will see you actually quite soon because I'm recording this in advance. And when you will see this, I think the week after I will come back because I will have something fun to share with you. So yeah, you'll probably see me again not too long. Oh my god, it's like it's completely knotted. It's yeah, it's a mess. So yes, I will see you very soon with some new things to share. In the meantime, I hope you are doing well. I wish you a very happy end of the month of March. I hope all you are staying safe, all is well, and I will see you very soon. Bye!